Thank you for purchasing Jungle Gym's Trailer Mate Pro. This video is to serve as a visual reference to the instruction manual provided. First, you will want to unpackage all the pieces and parts of the Trailer Mate Pro and organize and take inventory to be sure that the package is complete. Use this guide in the manual as a reference to the number of pieces you should have. If you're missing hardware or have product questions, please contact Jungle Gyms. Let's get started on the basket assembly. For this step, you will need a 9/16" wrench or deep well socket and the following parts on this list in the manual. Attach both of the sides to the bottom. The sides mount under the edge of the bottom. There are 4 holes on the long sides of the bottom. Insert carriage bolts through both the side and bottom and secure with hex flange nuts. Refer to the manual to see the placement and direction of the bolts. Do not fully tighten the bolts until after the legs are attached in a later step. Attach both ends. Note that the end is mounted to the inside of the sides and under the edge of the bottom. Attach a blower bracket to each end while attaching the sides using 2 3/4" hex bolts and 2 hex flange nuts. There is 1 hole for mounting the end to the side and 2 holes for mounting the end to the bottom. Repeat on the other side. Now, assemble the legs according to the diagram in the manual. For this step, you will need a 9/16" wrench or deep well socket and these parts, also listed in the manual. Tighten all leg bolts. Once the legs are assembled, mount them on the 8 outer square holes on the mounting basket. The width of your trailer will determine which holes you use on the legs to mount your basket onto the trailer. The measurement chart in the manual will allow you to determine proper mounting holes. When the correct holes have been identified, turn the basket assembly upside down or on its side and loosely mount the legs to the bottom using the previously placed bolts from the basket assembly step. Once proper placement has been verified, tighten all bolts. Now you are ready to mount the basket assembly on the trailer. For this step, you will need assistance in placing the basket on the trailer rails. Once the desired location of the legs has been determined, mark the rails and remove the basket from the trailer. Using a 1/2" drill bit, drill holes in the trailer rails. Bolts provided are for angle iron frames. Square or round tube rails will require longer bolts that can be purchased at any hardware store. Place basket assembly and secure to the rails using 8 3/4" carriage bolts and 8 hex flange nuts. Now attach the blower posts. Refer to the illustration in the manual if needed. For this step, you will need a 9/16" wrench or socket and these parts also listed in the manual. Attach blower posts to each end using 2 2 3/4" carriage bolts, 2 flat washers, and 2 hex flange nuts for each. Repeat on the other side. Attach the blower hook to the blower post using 2 1 3/4" carriage bolts, 2 flat washers, and 2 hex flange nuts. Repeat on the other side. The hole on the end of the blower hook can be used in conjunction with a lock for added security. Now assemble locking arms. You will need a 7/32" Allen wrench. Place the spring on the locking arm. Be sure that the eye holes on the number 502 spring are oriented as shown in the diagram. Slide the spring onto the locking arm so that the eye hole sits in the notch of the locking arm. To mount the ATR-TH on the pole, first insert the number 206 flathead socket screw through the piece ATR-TH through the bottom eye hole on the spring. Make sure the screw goes through the hole and the spring then attaches to the ATR-LN nut. Tighten securely with wrench. Align both assembled locking arms on each side of the trailer to ensure proper trimmer position. Mark rails and drill holes using the same drill bit. Using 4 3/4" bolts and 4 hex flange nuts, secure both locking arms to the trailer rails. Repeat for the front-mounted locking arm and compression pin assembly using the same size nuts and bolts. Next, assemble compression pins. Assemble compression pin by sliding the 1-inch hose over the compression pin. Then push on the square washer over the end of the compression pin. Next, take a flange bolt with the attached washer and then add a number 407 washer. Insert the flange bolt with the washers through the back of the locking arm into the compression pin. Hand tighten and repeat for the remaining 2. Now let's make adjustments for the trimmer. You will need a 1/2 inch socket wrench with extension or 1/2 inch deep socket. Place the trimmer in the rack by putting the cutting end of the shaft into the hook on the legs first at an angle with the engine lower than the cutting end. Raise the engine end of the trimmer up and into the hook on the locking pole. The trimmer should be positioned so that the handle is resting in the hook on the engine end. Be careful not to damage the throttle trigger when placing the trimmer into the rack. In order to prevent the trimmer from rotating while in the rack, the compression pin must be adjusted properly. Slide the compression pin down until it is touching the trimmer shaft and tighten the bolt. Remove the trimmer and slide the compression pin down another 1/16 inch lower and fully tighten the bolt on the compression pin. Remember to remove the trimmer, lift the engine end first. Swing towards yourself and lower slightly to release the cutting end of the trimmer. Place the trimmer in the rack and test to make sure the trimmer doesn't rotate easily. If it does, remove the trimmer and readjust the compression pin down in 1/16 inch increments until the rack holds the trimmer firmly but not so tightly that the trimmer cannot be removed. Now we'll add the accessories into the basket. TrailerMate Pro can be customized to hold a variety of things. Here we will demonstrate for gas cans and an air tank. Position the air tank vertically in the center of the basket. Take both tank brackets and position as close as possible to the tank on each side. Secure using 2 1/2 inch hex cap screws and 2 hex flange nuts on each side of the bracket. Repeat on the other side. If necessary, bend the tips around the air tank for a tighter fit. Divider bars are usually placed in the second row of holes between the gas tanks. The correct position can be found once the gas tanks are in the desired locations in the basket. Use hex screw 213 and a split ring washer on each side of the bar to tighten down. Repeat with the other divider. Mount the blower tube holders. Place the blowers on the hooks. The holder should be placed on the tube so that the tube is almost parallel with the bottom of the basket. Line the blower tube holder up with the 2 closest holes. Use 2 3/4 inch carriage bolts and 2 hex flange nuts to secure. Repeat with the second holder on the other side. Place the tube in the holder to ensure that there is a tight fit. Mount the trimmer line holder. The trimmer line bar can be placed through the small holes provided on the legs on either side of the back of the basket. Slide the bar through the hole and use 1 1/2 inch flat washer along with 1 nylon lock nut. Next, slide on 1 1/2 inch flat washer, then the hose if needed for smaller spools, then 1 3/8 inch flat washer. Add the trimmer line spool, 1 flat washer, and secure with 1 hitch pin clip. Next, mount the cooler holder bracket on the cooler base using 2 3/8 inch lock jam nuts and 2 machine screws. Insert only the right side of the strap through the right side of 1 tri-glide fastener. Repeat for the left side. Determine the placement for the cooler assembly on the trailer and mark holes on the trailer. Drill holes through the rail and mount the cooler assembly to the trailer using 2 hex cap screws, 2 hex flange nuts, and 2 split lock washers. Insert the cooler on the base and buckle the straps. Adjust the strap size so that the cooler is held securely in the holder. Now let's secure your items. Use the 20-foot galvanized cable to secure the items in the basket and the blowers using 3 padlocks. Place a padlock through the locking hole on one of the side locking pin poles and an eyelet of the cable. Thread the cable through the handle of the blower on the same side. through the handles of the items in the basket, the opposite blower handle, around to the opposite locking pin pole, and secure with a second padlock. The trimmer rack on the front of the trailer can be secured using a third padlock. Now let's install the tool rack. You'll need your 3/8" socket wrench and a 3/8" wrench and these parts listed in the manual. Insert the 5 grommets into the holes on the tool rack top. Using 4 3/8" hex cap screws and 4 3/8" hex flange nuts, mount the trailer rack top to the top of the 2 blower posts, adjusting height as desired. Mount the blower posts to the inside front panel of the trailer mate basket using 2 2 3/4" carriage bolts, 2 hex flange nuts, and 2 flat washers through the bottom square hole on the blower post. Then use 2 2 3/4" hex cap screws, 2 flat washers, and 2 hex flange nuts through the 2 round holes above the lower square holes. Next, install the tool rack bottom. Make sure to line the tool rack bottom up with the tool rack top and mark and drill holes accordingly. Mount the tool rack bottom using the remaining 4 hex cap screws and 4 hex flange nuts to the inside of the front rail of the trailer. It will be necessary to move the blower tube holder from the front of the basket to the front of the tool rack top. There are pre-drilled holes on all 5 hooks. Choose the one that works best for your blower. If you have any questions, please contact 1-888-844-JIMS, extension 10.